All right, for casting, thinking behind the idea of who my characters were going to be for archetype, who was going to be my interrogator, who was going to be the robot, um, who was going to be the assistant. I ended up using a casting director, which I highly recommend. Nick Anderson was a great casting director on archetype. I've used him on another short I did as well, Paralyzed. Very helpful, good ideas. He works with a lot of the True Blood actors. So this particular actor we have a picture of right now is Jelko Ivanek. He was my first original from Nick. Basically recommended Jelko for the interrogator. I thought he'd be perfect. He was in True Blood. He was one of the main vampire leads that kind of an evil guy that gets killed in the first season. But he just had such a quality to him that I thought would be great for being the interrogator. So I kind of modeled the idea around him after, Nick planted that seed of Jelko Ivanek playing the part. He loved the script. He said, yes, I'll do it. And it became, the day before we started shooting. It was actually, I think, it was the 2 days before we were shooting. We had the sets built, or we were working on it. And Joko basically had, an incident he had to deal with. His mother was had hurt herself and had to deal with her. And she was in Yugoslavia. So he took off, but was so apologetic and basically helped me find actors that he knew, and said that, hey, I've been talking to some, this guy Robert Joy. I've worked with him before. I know him really well. A good friend of mine, and so Robert Joy became the next one, and there was a few others that came through Nick Anderson, and then we basically settled on Robert Joy because he was recommended by Jelko, and they knew each other. Robert had read the material, loved it, seemed passionate about. So I felt like he'd be a good candidate. So he became Jones. He's our interrogator. It was so he was perfect. He worked out. I was it's just this was one of those processes that I've had to learn. Is like you settle with no matter what's going to happen. If you have something in mind, it's always going to change, and you have to adapt. And that's part of making movies. So that's just, again, like going back, that's part of the process of when you're working on movies, that things are going to change and you just have to adapt. And luckily, Robert Joy was, a pleasure. He was a joy to work with, just like his name. But very professional, had, elements that I was so surprised in the process when we actually started working together that I didn't even think that character was going to go into that direction, which I was so glad. So I was so happy to have him. The thing is, when these actors come on, when we start thinking about them, I go to IMDb quite a bit just to see what they've done, the type of films, and kind of their background. It kind of gives me an idea of what else have they achieved, what other characters, and I can kind of revisit them on those to see if there's anything that I can add to their character based on seeing how they performed before. Or take them in a completely different place and say, they haven't tried this. It looks like they're doing the kind of same thing. Maybe I can push them in the direction. So that was a lot of fun to work with the actors. But this is kind of how, this process starts. And the casting director was very helpful with finding my lead interrogator. Now for the robot, David Anders. So he recommended David Anders for the robot. He's been in Atlas. He's Heroes, just a bunch of stuff that a lot of TV he comes from. But, right after, he said his name and I've seen him in these shows, I thought, yeah, he'd be great. He'd be great for the robot. And so we ended up getting him on board. He read the script, really liked it. And he was perfect for the robot. So that was, there was no hitches there at all. Once he committed, then he came on board, very professional, and we worked together really well. And then there was the Stacy character, Elle Newlands. She was my Rob Niederhurst his girlfriend, and so she's done a lot of acting around town. She's done a lot of like theater, some small stuff here and then. She basically came in for a read, and I really liked her. I think she had a unique quality. She had an interesting accent. You know, she's from, I think it's Ireland. I might be wrong, or Scotland. I'd hate to get Scotland. Yes, and so she has this, interesting Scottish accent. I thought, well, maybe we'll play around with that, and I ended up abandoning that and going more British, just because it felt a little bit more like, I don't know. I don't want to degrade the Scottish accent or anything like that, but just a little bit more like a scientist, I guess, is what I was. Not to say that they're more sophisticated. It's just one of those things. I mean, we could go on with an American accent, and I would have felt like it was too generic. So there was some unique quality with it, and she could basically do any range I wanted. So we went with British for her character, and she did a great job. She looked great in the costume. She had this kind of odd, haircut. We were going to put a cap on her, but I think that this actually, made it feel more clinical, and just gave her an interesting overall look. So that was basically, how we came about the actors, and these were just, again, I highly recommend, any process through making your film is using professionals all the way through. I think that it'll just make your life easier. When it comes to the actors, it just made it easier when I was on set to basically have some really good actors that I could rely on and really knew what their talent and their acting ability. I didn't have to tell them anything as far as what to do, except for like just direction as far as what I wanted. But I didn't have to tell them how to act. So again, like with a DP, actors, everybody, I use professionals through the process, and that made it just so much easier. Then it was the camera. We ended up, trying to decide what kind of camera package would we use. We could have gone with film, but film's too expensive. These days with, digital, there's so many different cameras you can use. I ended up using the Red camera, basically because I felt like the Red camera was a camera that here, let me open up their home page so that we can kind of look at it. I just felt the Red camera has been used quite a bit in film lately, and I feel that it's also just it's very reliable. And the great thing, especially when you're doing stuff with a lot of visual effects, that the Red camera is one that it shoots up to 4K, so you can basically, if you need to zoom in on something, you're going to have a lot of great quality imagery without all the grain. I mean, we could have done 16 to add like the grittiness, but that's something that I felt like we could do in post. I just wanted the best camera for archetype, and the Red was, just, it was recommended. My DP liked it. He's used it before, was very familiar with it. And so I highly recommend, if you're going to shoot a short, if you're going to shoot anything digital, that the Red is a really great camera. It's easy to use. It's got a great support behind it. You can put any lens that like film lens on it. It's very small and compact, so you can get it in places. It's and the quality, I think, of just the image. And again, going into, you can shoot up to 4K, so your images are so tight. And typically film is 2K, so you have that extra 2K to play with and crop into a shot that you're going to get so much clarity out of. So you can see the different films that the Red's been shot on. So it's becoming a kind of a norm in the movie industry right now for digital, is using the Red. So that was basically how the actors, the camera, some of that was thought of, and how it kind of came about, and how we moved into pre-production into a production. And so the next chapter we'll start talking about shooting. using the red and shooting with the actors. All right.